Hello everyone, this is Brad Wistance. This mission will finish off my series of minimalist designs with a trip to Duna and back. Like the ones before it, we're going to use fairings to take as much advantage of the aerodynamic model as possible. And we're also going to make as much use of the ridiculous amount of delta V in an EVA pack as possible. The design of this craft is most similar to the Minmus and back mission. It weighs about a ton more at 2,998 kilograms, because I added a air-breathing Panther engine as the bottom stage, which will allow this to get more mass to orbit, which will be necessary because landing on Duna and returning will take significantly more delta V than going to Minmus and back. One difficulty with the takeoff was that the air intakes actually do not supply enough air to the engines at a standstill to give enough thrust with the engine to get past 1 TWR. However, there's just enough air stored in the air intakes that we can get a short burst of thrust necessary to get us going fast enough that the air intakes can provide enough air. Despite the small size of this craft, the use of fairings means that it's actually extremely aerodynamic. This will allow us to take a very horizontal ascent, which will allow us to get close to 1,000 meters per second, and close to the theoretical top speed of a craft using Panther engines. Even after the craft starts slowing down with just the air-breathing engine, I do allow it to coast for a little while longer. This gets us out of the thickest layer of the atmosphere before we get rid of the bottom stage, which does make us slightly less aerodynamic. Thanks to the boost from the air-breathing engine, I was able to use only one spark engine for the second stage. This burn will push us all the way to suborbital trajectory with an apoapsis right near the edge of the atmosphere. The streamlined second stage is now entirely out of fuel, so we're going to let ourselves coast to space, and once we get there, we'll start the next stage and use that to circularize. Once in space, we discard the spark stage and we'll be using only spider engines for the rest of the mission. The reason we use the spider engines instead of the more efficient ant engines is that, like in the previous minimalist missions, there is absolutely zero electrical components, including reaction wheels in this build. That means we will be controlling our orientation purely with engine gimbal. Due to the small scale of this craft, saving the mass from eliminating the electrical components makes a big difference, and these weight savings will have saved us about 400 meters per second by the end of the mission. While the orbital TWR in this craft is quite a bit higher than some of the missions I've done, it's still too low to efficiently eject from Kerbin to Duna in one burn, so we will be splitting it over multiple burns at periapsis. For some extra delta V savings, we're going to be doing a gravity assist off of the Mun that will give us about an extra 60 meters per second delta V. While this isn't a huge deal in a minimalist mission like this, any savings can make a big difference. In what Bill claims is a totally accidental turn of events, the gravity assist off of the Mun brought us within less than 9 meters of the surface. Perhaps not as outrageous as that Tylo gravity assist some time ago, but certainly enough to keep everyone on their toes. After the gravity assist off of the Mun, we made an unhelpful flyby of Minmus. This didn't make too much of a difference in terms of delta V, but it did require some extra effort during the ejection from Kerbin to make sure we were having an accurate approach on Duna. Despite the occasional naysayers, I think these command chair builds are totally comfortable for interplanetary transfers. We are now here at the Red Planet. Initially I was thinking that I might try to use Ike for a capture gravity assist, but due to the low orbital speeds on Duna, you can slow yourself down plenty using the atmosphere without burning up. There was almost an accidental encounter with Ike on the second orbit of Duna, which would have flung us back out into interplanetary space, but luckily the atmosphere of Duna slowed us just enough down that we did not actually encounter Ike's sphere of influence. After several aerobraking passes to slow us down to a low orbit, I put myself back into a stable orbit before the final landing approach. This is for two reasons. Firstly, one of the stages needs to remain in orbit because Bill will need a way to get back to Kerbin. Also, this craft needs to land on a very high altitude on Duna. This means that I needed to put myself into a stable orbit so we could very precisely pick the landing spot. Before detaching the two craft, it's important that fuel is distributed perfectly between the two, so I leave just enough fuel in the orbital stage to get Bill back to Kerbin once he reorbits Duna, and then leave the rest of it in the lander. Our destination landing spot will be the very prominent mountain off the southeast side of the western crater, so Bill takes very careful aim and gets ready for the landing approach. While there is a little bit of excess fuel in the lander compared to what we need, I still want to do the landing approach as efficiently as possible, so the goal will be to start the suicide burn as late as possible and still be able to slow down enough to not break anything when we hit the surface. Once Bill lands, he quickly hops out of the craft and gets in the way to stop it from rolling the rest of the way down the mountain. And he realizes at this point that we have not landed on the summit of the mountain, but just off of the summit. Luckily, this craft has the absolute latest word in surface mobility and can be pushed by Bill the rest of the way up the mountain at about 2 meters per second. There is enough fuel in the craft that this wouldn't have really been necessary, but we thought Bill needed the extra exercise. And of course, no landing would be complete without flags and footprints, so people know that we really were here. Now that we're getting to the takeoff, there is a little bit of a challenge here. This craft has absolutely no reaction wheels, so it has no easy way to right itself. As a result, we'll again rely on Bill pushing the craft. So he'll need to push the craft off the side of the cliff here so it rolls into an upright position before quickly climbing on board and igniting the rocket engine. Unlike on Kerbin, we're going to be taking an extremely vertical ascent profile. This is because while on Kerbin we were extremely aerodynamic, Bill just sitting in a command chair is one of the least aerodynamic things in the history of Kerbal Space Program. We'll have to have him work on that. Once our apoapsis is near space, we're going to coast a bit to allow us to get out of the thicker layers of Duna's atmosphere. And once near space, we're going to exhaust the rest of the fuel in the rocket. And at this point, Bill will climb out and will be using his EVA pack to complete circularization. Using the EVA pack to its full potential is a big source of mass savings in this mission. The EVA pack offers over 600 meters per second of delta V, which greatly reduces the total delta V requirement that you need from rockets. Thanks to the efficiency in the mission so far, we have quite a bit more EVA propellant left over than I had anticipated, which will make finding the craft that we left in orbit a lot easier than anticipated. The extra EVA propellant gives us a little bit of buffer if we wanted it, but we still want to do this as efficiently as possible. So to save some more delta V, we're going to be using an Ike gravity assist to eject us from Duna to Kerbin. This is similar to the Mun assist, and it'll save us about 40 meters per second of delta V. Because our flyby of Ike was carefully tuned to allow us to approach Kerbin at the right altitude, we unfortunately could not make as low of a pass as on the Mun. Compared to the last interplanetary transfer, Bill now had quite a bit more headroom, which is, I guess, an improvement. The altitude of our periapsis on the initial aerobraking pass on Kerbin had to be very carefully tuned. Any lower and Bill would have burned up during the pass and died, and any higher and we would not have had enough delta V from the aerobraking pass to slow us into a captured orbit. The initial plan was to let the aerobraking passes put us down in the surface wherever they wanted to, but since I had a little bit of EVA fuel left over, I was able to use that to correct Bill into a low Kerbin orbit before the final descent. Due to the imprecise nature of these corrections, an exact landing at the Kerbal Space Center was not something that was going to happen, but we were able to at least aim Bill somewhere in the vicinity. So with nothing left to do but to watch Bill coast down to the surface, we'll again watch as an Oscar tank provides enough crush space to survive a fall from terminal velocity. So with that landing, our mission is now brought to a close. The next video up for you guys will be the gravity assist tutorial I've been threatening for some time. It might be a single video, it might be a series, we'll see how the production goes. In any case, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.